Many people thought MASH was the ideal blend of comedy, tragedy, and relatability, that a program in which the actors and actresses seemed to best simultaneously with their on-screen personas. However, underneath that mirth and brotherhood, an undercurrent of evil lingered. The actor Gary Burghoff, who portrayed delightful and naive Radar O'Reilly, became the target of intense animosity with the rest of his cast. What are some things that could lead to nobody can stand that adorable face that the 477th? The reality concealed beneath whispers for a long time, in the stillness of which a tale that no admirer of what MASH was hoping to hear. As a result of O'Reilly Radar, Rodney Gary's link to Gary started a long time before television occurrence that would dictate the course of his life. Robert Altman, a pioneering American director for the big screen, Altman set out to adapt MASH. He cast the 26-year-old actor in the lead role, the Connecticut-born performer and jazz musician in a minor but noteworthy capacity, that of Walter. The youthful and naive office clerk O'Reilly Radar, at the time. Burghoff was not widely recognized, acting in off-Broadway productions and Main Street. However, Altman noticed something in with him, a purity of heart that would secure the satire on the mayhem of war. Gary's comfortable gestures during performance and an inherent gentleness caused a profound impact despite the small size of his time. Radar emerged as the sentimental strand that mitigated the harsh boundaries of Altman's sardonic masterwork. After waiting 2 years, CBS finally took a chance, considering turning the movie into a weekly on-screen character. Gary was the sole actor requested feedback on his performance. It was surprised and wary. The movie by Altman was an unfiltered, defiant critique of power, an air of professionalism that usually disinfected. The prospect of the intricate timbre of MASH would be watered down by network regulations and scripted humor. Yet being tempted to go back to Radar, to raise his profile to that of within the insanity, a fully formed spirit, the force of war, was too great to be resisted. At the time of the September premiere, April 17, 1972, understatedly transformed American television. Despite taking place in Korea, played during the peak of the Vietnam War conflict, and viewers grasped underneath right away. Witnesses among the general public, medical professionals, and soldiers identified their own disappointment shown in each and every episode. Radar in the midst of mayhem, standing alone. The youthful clerk, who was able the first to hear the sound of helicopters, and kept his innocence intact in the midst of bureaucracy and blood. The second season had critics complaining that referring to him as the 477th's beating heart, as well as fan correspondence from all around the entire planet. His stammering sir was liked by the viewers. He maintains an awkward stance and his constant plush mushkin. Overwhelmingly, these contacts, the teddy bear, anxious tics, peaceful empathetic situations, occurred throughout Gary's discoveries made by gut feelings instead of the script. However, achievement blossomed into its own combat zone. The other main characters in the show, Alan Alda, after maturing into Lan Stevenson, Wayne Rogers. Gary was questioned about complicated adult characters always act like a little kid. The use of Radar remained unchanged regardless of the circumstances carried out. Manufacturers were adamant that to protect the innocent. Fans pushed for each week that delectable flavor. Due to the stress, it was oppressive to maintain that reputation. Before long, Gary was taking in every critique, all of the author space, each scene that failed to authentic. A perfectionist at heart, has stuck in a position that doesn't serve me Anamarito his ownership. The love of the people, albeit genuine, generated an unseen detention center. Their affinity with Radar grew as their Gary's anxiety of Naver perceived as something else once more. In the distance, the scenes, weariness set in. The filming took a lot of time. The written material strenuous, while the tone of the show's tone turned tragic, grounded in truth. Gary was the one who had to deal with personifying the purity of the program. Experienced at worst, but others might lash out in a sardonic or gallows humorous manner. Hezebed through every episode's sadness. The boundary between performer and role became hazy. Exiting the scene, Hestil, contemplative, looking for balance. While filming, he gave impressively nuanced performances, one with a hint of genuine exhaustion and fragility. When MASH started its in-between seasons, when the disease first emerged in order to display, something that was once a joyous had become a weighty responsibility. A radar-based innocence gave the program a human touch, but for Gary Burghoff, upholding such innocence in the face of the height of celebrity and anticipation not at all. His on-screen innocence was what made him unique, was eating away at him in the actual world. Plus, nobody could see it quite yet, but the potential sources of strife and separation previously planted at AS respect morphed into animosity. Disagreements began to emerge between Gary, including trapper Wayne Rogers, Mr. John McIntyre. Early in the season, their relationship was proved indisputable. The slick surgeon gently teases living it up on set, but the anxious clerk recorded for as long as 14 hours daily was much less amusing. A perfectionist, Rogers was a man who was precise and effective in his lines precisely. In comparison, Gary felt deeply. On rare occasions, he questioned argument or requested further renditions up until the moment's reality hit him. Wayne was impressed by his dedication at first. Time was wasted as a result of the delays and money. Difficulty persisted. If one believes tales referenced in Raymond Straight S. Alan Alda's biography from 1983 is one around midday, Rogers had finally lost it. While Gary was rewriting a scene back in the game, Wayne slammed a chair positioned on the set. Gary was left out, although the meaning was obvious. Due to hysis sufficient, everyone on board became rigid. Production halted. Today is over. The guys both gave back the coming up on a daily basis as experts. Yet, a shiver ran down everyone's spine that never lifted. Rogers departed from the show following season 3. The deal is officially off. Disagreements. But in private, co-workers were mindful of persistent disagreements with producers. The cast, which included Burghoff, while washed him dry. Stevenson, bland, gently-mannered Colonel Henry Blake, maintained harmony at times. I caused him trouble and at times, he posed an issue for me. Hito, the fact that they were friends even after all these years, wavered between laughing and remaining quiet. Hypersensitivity. Gary's discomfort ran into Stevenson's casualness during improvising. Minor nitpicks risk leading to resentment, without once denying Gary's genius. He claimed credit for giving Radar life. Season 4 saw Alan Alda's transformation into the artistic director of the development of screenplays, the helming of episodes, building the mood. Gary, in the meantime, was experiencing failed to acknowledge. Innocence of Radar is seldom progressed, and he yearned to investigate deeper. Whenever he proposed adjustments, Alda frequently used her veto power to shield the balance of the show. Gary thought it individual. For Alda, it was all business. As MASH expanded, mutual respect began to deteriorate. The political landscape shrank around Gary, and he seemed more agitated than usual. People who knew him remembered that he would often sit by himself between takes, drawing, or peacefully adjusting a drum set rather than conversing. That the cast's cherished younger sibling is now appeared distant. There was palpable tension. Just as tired was I after 7 years off on set had muddled friendship dynamics and monotony, and before long, Gary Burghoff would make the choice that he had had enough, interfered with the most sad farewell, an almost disastrous farewell. The whole thing. It was 1979, and Gary was prepared to quit. Being famous has become a burden. Intolerable, and the marital bliss he had swaying in the shadow of non-existence. I wanted out after, he informed producers. Season 7. They made him stay for an appropriate farewell. A 2-part farewell was penned by the writers. Goodbye Radar, which premiered in Season 8. In the end, his protagonist would go back to Iowa, subsequently to his uncle's passing. It was appropriate, delicate ending. However, while filming, art and ego clashed in the film directed by Charles Dubon foresaw Radar's departure as calm and controlled. The young man who had anchored the camp while it slipped away ignored as others toiled to rescue person's life. Gary was of the opinion that it wasn't right. He wished release, emotional distress, sobbing, and a catastrophic breakdown. Dubon warned, "If I were you, it'd stifle the sobs." Gary scowled. "In a way, I want to handle the cameras myself." Rolled. His voice broke as he sobbed freely. Quaking in their grip, the crew erupted in cheers for politeness' sake, but Dubon's expression the whole thing. His next morning's newspapers showed it. I see. The moment seemed rushed and cheesy. Laborious, to the point of being dramatic. Gary humiliated. "It was awful," he remarked down the road. The folks behind him, the sitcom that altered the medium of television. The director was, I understand. It was his fault. He pleaded with her recreate the scene. Dubin consented, but with one stipulation: no need to cry. Radar is just walking this time. AS medical planes bring in casualties warriors. Strictly no festivities, no oratory, just the sound of getting back to work. Subtly, that departure became eighth series' most chilling scenes, a poignant expression that the conflict does not stop for farewells. Gary was on the verge of ruining, failed to bid farewell, provided a performance of his finest hour. Ultimately, millions were affected. However, Behincheers, Mutters, and a few fellow actors viewed the incident as evidence of his domineering personality. Other people perceived a guy anxious to part with a part of himself following. In any case, upon Radar's boarding Gary, that final truck departing from Korea with that, Burghoff departed from Hollywood, that accompanying him. Subsequently, he acknowledged that he was overwhelmed by the situation. Mass wasn't about one feeling. He stated that it had to do with how the inhumanity of war engulfs all individuals. The worst part was that he didn't notice it until upon which his legacy was almost jeopardized. Disinformation, remorse, and truth. October 1979 was the air date of the episode, and public outcry, critical acclaim, and the word spread like wildfire. Tabloids asserted an off-screen celebration was hosted by the cast, in honor of Gary's exit. News stories accused him of being irritable, impulsive, and haughty. No one queried his motives. Actually departed. The reality was excruciatingly plain. He had exhausted himself. The MASH timetable consumed 10 months annually. During those long days of filming, and Gary had a very limited opportunity to witness his spouse and 2 young children. Viewers feel obligated to portray yourself in a certain way later on, he clarified. On screen. The truth is that compared toy will certainly remain. Keeping true to that innocence was draining, both in front of and behind the camera. He aspired to be a doting dad rather than a legendary character mired in repetitions. He was the rumor mill had a better grasp than the co-stars implied. Juarez Ferre, adored as in a 2024 Miles, Corporal Klinger was admitted to TV appearance. I informed Gary about his separation might hurt the show's ratings, and he was unable to dissuade him. Though, Major Holland's actress, Loretta Swit, reflected on delightful and humorous times spent. Wythe was aware of his own shortcomings, but cut ties with the organization. Larry declines to soar, she declared in 2018, getting people to bring him to a central location where we can camped out. Alan Alda, who was formerly considered adversary, ultimately made contact in friendship. Based on his lucid and vibrant 2019 podcast reunion, Alda shared lovingly praising the whole ensemble, highlighting Gary's contribution is the beating heart, held us to our word. By 2022, he had the tweet read, "Happy birthday, Gary. You are loved by the globe. Also me." Regarding fans who took the rumors at face value, those actions changed the plot. A period off discord, certainly, but no enduring animosity. The alleged enmity had less to do with tensions between 2 powerful individuals' innovative desires clashing under excruciating strain. As soon as the cameras halted, every one of them bore scars. Gary was merely the most prominent. The irony was that his departure caused him to safeguard Radar's purity of heart in perpetuity. That there was no need for character to become bitter, and just as the audience's recollection of what he was. Gary Burghoff's subtle talent was as his greatest hardship. What comes next for the man behind MASH, urban legend? Gary vanished from the scene following MASH, glamour in Hollywood. The occasional guest star appearance that came after. A spin-off pilot that didn't last long. In 1984, Walter. A little amount of nearby theater, voice acting, portraying animals and art. In total defiance of the fame industry, he fought it that a life devoid of airports became his norm, deadlines, or red carpets. "I don't fly," he would frequently state. "I enjoy being in the same place as my feet." The followers saw a different side of him. The humanitarian. A YouTube video featuring him was uploaded in 2018 that alongside his adult children to provide for tragedy caused by the flames in California, assisting in the collection of almost $16,000 by platform known as GoFundMe. His voice was low as he thanked the sponsors and promoting generosity. That was just Radar. When not wearing a uniform. Indisputably, head-hot about the inconsistencies that characterized him. Being as sensitive as enabled him to portray a convincing character and as a whole intolerable. You give too much of yourself. Once said he'd willingly admit it. As soon as the footage ends, nothing remained when he poured the tan understanding of animal anatomy, composition songs, and guiding aspiring artists out of the limelight. Towards the middle of mid-2020s, he was peacefully residing in California, together with a grandpa, a dad, and represent a more mellow time in television history that as time passed. It continued to tick away that is able to. His co-workers were many and deceased that in the year 1996. Lance Stevenson, David Ogden Stiers, and Harry Morgan in 2011-2018, with Loretta Swit being the most current example. Yet, Gary continues to receive fan letters thanking his lessons on the power of kindness to persevere through conflict. With each repeat, at this point, Radar re-enters the tent, and for 25 minutes, everything seems nice. In order to somebody who was previously said to be difficult, Gary leaves behind an incredibly tranquil legacy. Supposed animosity that his immediate vicinity has broken down into admiration. Only a representation of someone working as a clerk who was able to detect the sound of helicopters ahead of everyone else. Maybe a metaphor in the case of a performer who felt agony prior to nobody else did. What happened to Gary Burghoff is about more than simply an on-set conflict. Everything that occurs when art demands beyond what an individual is capable of delivering. The feeling the need to maintain a charismatic personality. My body is drained, feigning health and wellness. The ignorance that develops when sensibility and drive converge. It all met in the midst of a man's fight for survival, genuine in character. A while back, he was poorly perceived and even despised. Nevertheless, when looking back, every dispute, every gossip, through all of the tears he fought to hold back, I now feel that my screen is a part of a bigger truth. He was easy to deal with. It was human being. Today, when viewers tune in to MSH, they cannot perceive the stress or exhaustion that as they look. They notice a young soldier with a cuddly teddy bear. That kindness is paramount. The truly tragic thing is that although the world, and perhaps his co-workers, too, must comprehend person hiding behind that naivete. Gary Burghoff made the statement. It wasn't about fame for in the first place. Perhaps that explains the reason why his representation of Radar continues to feel ephemeral. His goal was not to win over the audience. He pursued a truth. Despite the fact that the news once yelled out a history of bigotry and ego murmurs, something new now. Pardon, reverence, and inner peace gratitude. As a result, maybe the best who despised him isn't the issue. Rather, who get to know him. Are you in agreement? Did the correct decision was made by Gary Burghoff that exiting the church at that particular moment? Feel free to marks on this page. And make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and keep watching for other undiscovered tales from famous people in the history of television.